Okay, so you've heard of the pH scale. We talked about it last year. Here we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper than we have in the past and look at it from a mathematical perspective as well. So the pH concept was proposed by Danish scientist Søren Sorensen. And you know, whenever you have a name like that, you always think, how unoriginal were the parents, right? But who knows? All right, the scale can range from -1 to 14. Most of the time in like middle school and whatnot, they just say it's 1 to 14, just to make it easier to understand, because it's hard when you have a negative number in there. Sometimes they also will say 0 to 14. Basically, it can go pretty low, all right? That's not really going to matter too much for us anyway. What's going to matter for us, though, is the equation and how we figure out pH. So this is the equation. It's pH, which is the number, right? Like pH of 7, you think of pH of 7, you know, oh, that's neutral, right? Just because you've heard it before. And then you might have remembered that numbers that are less than 7 are acids and numbers that are above 7 are bases. But we're going to get into all that. But that's just a number, all right? How you come up with it is you're going to use this button on your calculator called the log button. And that's short for logarithm, which is just some fancy math that we're not going to get into too much this year. In Algebra 2, I think you guys go over it a bit. But basically for this, we just have to know how to use it on the calculator. And it's going to take our concentration and put it into pH, all right? So what you would actually type in the calculator would be something like negative log. So you hit the negative button, you hit the log button. And then what goes in here is your H plus concentration. Now you have to be given this, right, if it's a problem. So if you're like, oh, okay, well, we were just dealing with this here. So if you have H plus, you can plug it in, which is why this equation is important, because if they gave you this and said find the pH, you would have to do this problem first to go from OH to H plus and then plug it into the new equation. So that's as complicated as it gets, really, having to use two equations to solve a problem, all right? And we're going to go through how to use this equation right now. All right. So we're going to start off with a very simple pH equation here, and we're going to do it for a neutral solution. We said that if you have an H plus that's 1.0 times 10 to the negative 7th, that's neutral, all right? And if you're like, well, when did we say that? It was on that first slide way back here, where in pure water we said pure water, that's the number, all right? Now we're going to see how that's actually 7 when we use this logarithmic equation. So what you're going to plug into your calculator is this right here. All right, so it's pH equals negative log 1.0 times 10 to the negative 7th. But remember, you want to use that E button. So it'll look something like this. Negative log 1.0, that E button, negative 7. And you should get 7. That should be your answer. You should just get a 7 out of it. So try it. See if you got it. Okay, so we plug this in, we get 7.0.